What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Pizza Palace. Sean, what episode is this?
We are on episode number, I believe we're on episode number 25.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
We've made a quarter of these. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
You know,
we're on our quarter life crisis. Actually, this is episode 26. I ruined it.
26,
Soiled it. I done it up.
Fucker, I hate you. I hate you forever. Delete an episode so that this can be 25. Delete an episode that no one cares about. No,
right.
but what?
Which one? No, I'm kidding.
Any of them. No, they're old. The thing that's nice is that since the content is so, like, you know, dependent on the current, it's like, after it's gone, it's like,
The best Pizza Palace is the next Pizza Palace.
That's right. Anyways.
Or the one where we talk about where we put our bread. That one
Where
too.
we put our bread. It is the most important question. It really is. But no, welcome everybody to another edition here. Your host, Robert Winstanley, alongside, of course, Sean Murphy.
Hello, Robert.
Yes, hello. It has been a minute. But we're back. We're here. We're live and alive. And yeah, well, we're not technically live. Actually, we are gonna do one of those sometime.
Well, yeah, we're gonna do a live one soon. I mean, we're gonna have.
We'll do a live one eventually
too.
Once Sean trusts me not to get canceled, which he never should. But
oh god, yeah, like there's just every 2 or 3 weeks, I have to go through and go in the editing room and just be like, all right, how can I salvage this one?
That's right. This episode's not going to be for the general public.
This won't be for the faint of heart, or should I say the left?
The fucking libs. No, but Jesus Christ. Sean, we are in the midst of the NBA Finals. Which is pretty exciting, except for the fact that my Miami Heat are no longer in it, so I stopped caring immediately.
I couldn't. I warned you of that months ago, my friend. I told you.
Oh, I knew.
Yeah,
but I just listen.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was a skeleton crew by the time we got to the conference finals for the Heat. But on top of that, even then, a lot of guys that they're paying significant money to, they don't even trust to play minutes in the playoffs. Duncan Robinson he has over $50 million guaranteed left owed by the Heat, and he hardly played in the playoffs.
It was a contract that I hated when we first gave it to him. I was just like, "Oh, buddy, what are we doing?" Yeah, I don't know.
Which at the time, his value was insane as far as the shooting that he was doing. But at the same time,
yeah, but I knew that wasn't gonna last.
But the Heat, the Heat sure thought it would last. But
well, they were wrong.
Well, yeah, that's the tough thing to. It's just the tough thing to predict because first of all, I mean, a lot of it was just they were just like, all right, get it in your hands and shoot the freaking ball. Which, a lot of times, it's even in instincts where it's he wasn't initially comfortable. It's they just got him to the point where he just shoots the dang ball, and that's his thing. And it's the problem is when you're a shooter, and that is your entire game, and you're in a slump. Then
it looks really ugly.
Yeah, that can mess with you for a little bit.
Well, and it sucks too because he is more versatile than that. So it's just the whole thing was really just kind of a shame what ended up happening with the Miami Heat, and hopefully they can get things figured out next season. I guess we'll see, but yeah. It's strange for everything that the Heat culture does really, really well and does right. There's also a few things that they do that are very questionable.
Well, no team's perfect. Every team has
for sure.
Flaws. And I think the Heat are a type of team that they reward hard work and they reward
a little
players,
too much.
They reward players that are in the system, that are in the culture. And the problem is that even when you bet on guys that you believe in, you're not always gonna be right. Even if they're Heat guys. And it's a lot of these guys were, Duncan Robinson was in the G League at the beginning of his career for a reason,
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe the other thing is he had to become such a focal point of defensive schemes. Duncan Robinson did, just because of how much of a threat he was at one point. You almost just got to wonder, is it just that he hasn't developed the next phase of his game? I think for the Heat, the big thing is just going to be if they want to make the next step, they're going to have to go make a trade to make the next step happen. Now, like if there's like a guy like
I agree.
Donovan Mitchell that's available, obviously they could try and make a big package happen. However, I just don't see anything because I mean you can maybe get something with Tyler Hero as your centerpiece of a trade. Like that's like a decent young asset, but the problem is he's someone that wants to get paid this summer. And so, Miami's in a situation where they might have
Yeah.
to give out another contract that they're not in love with.
Right.
So that's kind of the cycle that they're catching themselves in where they get pretty good, they get pretty competitive, and then that team becomes no longer cheap. And
Yes.
the Heat are very much already not cheap. So
Yeah, you're totally right on the money with that. Where like they have a couple of years where they're good enough to either flirt with the finals or even make it to the finals, and they just never quite get over the hump, except for when they had LeBron, obviously. But they get close, and then it gets a little too expensive. They get rid of a lot of guys. They have a couple of years that are very questionable. They maybe even miss the playoffs or just barely make the playoffs, kind of deal, and then they go back to being sort of relevant again. They're just
right.
they're always kind of flirting in the middle. They're never really that bad. They're never like so good that you're like, holy shit, they're like the title favorite, even
Right.
though
Well,
they were like,
they're a basketball program, and
yeah.
like what that means is like you have consistency and you consistently can hit you consistently can hit a certain mark. But you
And it's
know,
kind of disappointing in the sense of like, I say that they're never a top team, even though they had one of the best records in the NBA this season and were a number one seed and all that kind of
they
stuff.
were a top 4 team in the league this year.
That being said, the Heat are so weird because of the fact they're always grinders and they don't have a lot of big names, except of course when they had D Wade and LeBron and blah blah blah. But like other than that, they really always just have like a solid core of guys, and they're never like they get a lot of wins in the season, and they are on top of their division and all this kind of stuff. But they're never like blowing guys out and blowing teams out. They never feel like the Golden State Warriors, right?
Well,
They never feel like the
it's because they're not. It's because
right.
they're not. It's because they're far from it.
Right.
They're not the team that's going to go out and be explosive. They're not the team that has those explosive type of players. They are the team that is going to grind out wins, and they do it similarly like the Warriors developed a lot in-house, and they drafted Curry, and that's and
Yeah.
getting those
And
special
Clay
generational
and
talents are what allows you to do those types of things and be as explosive and dynamic as they are. Whereas the Heat, it's never, they've had their fair share of generational talents, but nobody on this roster right now would be considered generational. Like Jimmy Butler, maybe like you could throw as like, for like this modern NBA, like this generation of basketball, he's one of the stars, but he's
sure.
never going to be like the star. He's never going to be a top 5 player in this league. He's just not.
Yeah, it's tough. Jimmy is the type of guy who I think, especially if he were to at some point win a championship with the Heat, I think he's the type of guy that could be a ring of honor type guy for a team.
Mhm.
I don't know that he's an NBA Hall of Famer necessarily. Like I think it's one of those kind of he's stuck somewhere in the middle to where I think that, the
Right.
Heat could put him in the ring of honor of like, oh,
Well, it
remember when
just
we had
depends
him?
on
He was great.
well, it
The
just
the
depends
Hall
on
of
what they
Fame.
it just depends on what they accomplish. It's just way too early to say that. He's just like he's in his mid-20s still. So, it's like one of those things where it's not like the Heat are just like they're never going to win a title. Or it's not
Oh
that like
yeah,
they can't put
100%,
it's not like they
100%.
can't put the pieces together, but it's just, like as of where it stands right now, if they want to get over the hump, they're going to have to make a significant change. Jimmy, I mean, he's not in his mid-20s. He's
He's a
32
little
right
older
now.
than that.
So,
Yeah, yeah. I was
yeah,
gonna
he's
say he's
32. So
definitely older than that.
he's been playing the league right now for about 11 seasons. So
That's why I
far,
said
yeah, so far 6-time All-Star. He's definitely, like you would say, he's probably on the bubble of being in the Hall of Fame. But I would still say, especially with what they have in Miami, there's too much now to say you can't rule anything out. I would say, I mean, if you go on
yes.
Basketball Reference, they'd say he's a 71% chance of getting in the Hall of Fame. And I'd say there's a good chance he's a Hall of Famer too. But
I hope so, because I love him. I think he's one of my favorite players, ever in the NBA, as a young fan, with all caveats there. Obviously I haven't been watching even close to you, but in the time that I've watched, he's one of my favorites I've ever watched.
oh, he's one of the he has some of the most charisma of
Yeah.
any player. Like he just has this energy and this and also just a will about him where he's never truly out of a game.
Yeah, and his ability to carry a team
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that not many people can do. Like LeBron
Yeah.
can do it, and Antetokounmpo can do it and stuff like that. And I mean, those are some of the greatest, obviously, in the game ever. And so he has that ability, on some level. It is just tough. I think he's just one of those guys that unfortunately kind of gets overlooked a little bit.
Well,
But
the other
he also doesn't have the accomplishments quite yet.
Well, the other thing too, the other thing you have to consider is that a lot of these guys are going out there and putting on big performances each and every night throughout the regular season. Stephen Curry's the kind of guy who any given night can give you a 38 or 40-point bomb, but Jimmy Butler doesn't care about the regular season. He's very much focused on playoff basketball, and he can put up incredible performances, and he can put up 40+ point games if he wants to in postseason play, but like throughout the regular season, it's not really the case. He's gonna have some nights where he'll have a good game, but he's not worried about his season averages. He's not even worried entirely about the record, just because it's just about, for this Heat team this past year, it was just about getting to the playoffs. It was just about getting home court or getting a good standing and being in the playoffs. So yeah, that's really why, because throughout the regular season, guys are going to talk about, like, or we're going to look at the guys who are putting on those big performances, because there are certain players where it's just in their personality. Like Giannis, he goes hard every single night.
Yeah.
He treats every game like their most important game. Whereas guys like Jimmy Butler or even Draymond Green, he calls himself the worst. He calls himself the worst no pressure game player ever. Like, because there's just certain guys when inherently the competitive stakes just aren't there. It's just hard to get yourself to be there. So I think Jimmy Butler's he's just inherently one of those guys, because he's tasted finals basketball. He's tasted that stuff.
And the thing with Jimmy is there's some guys who want that pressure, and there's guys who want to be that guy in the playoffs, right? But then the playoffs roll around and they're not that fucking guy, James Harden. So it's just it's interesting that he wants to be that guy, and he's every bit. Like, he is probably in the top 3 maybe that I've seen personally ever in the postseason. Obviously, I wasn't around for Kobe and some of these other guys and whatever. Or I mean, I was, but I didn't watch them.
Right.
But like, as far as what I've seen, I mean, he's one of the most clutch and most, like, if there's a guy I want in the postseason that I want to depend on, it's going to be Jimmy Butler.
I would say he's definitely, like, over like the past like 10 years, I would definitely say he's been one of the better, like, clutch players as far, for sure.
And
but
Steph Curry's probably number 1, like, probably, or LeBron. Either Steph or LeBron's number 1, but Jimmy, I put in the conversation of just guys that in the postseason he's gonna fucking be there.
I wouldn't put Steph number 1 clutch in the playoffs yet, just because we haven't seen him really have that iconic finals performance yet, or that iconic, like, we haven't seen Steph win finals MVP yet, or we haven't seen him be the reason the Warriors have won.
That's a really fair point.
So I think for him, it's like you can't really put him as like the top, like, as far as like who would be the top clutch. Oh, like that's a hard thing to say. I mean, like, when I think of, like, it's hard for me to have that conversation without bringing up Kawhi Leonard inherently, just because some of those shots he hit in that Toronto run, some of the things he did for the Spurs. He even had some really good performances for the Clippers before he tore his ACL in that second playoff run.
Would you agree with me in saying, like, when I think of Jimmy Butler, I think he and Kawhi Leonard are extremely comparable. Like, they're very much the same in a lot of ways of the type of character of player that they are.
I think they're very similar in the fact that they both take both ends very seriously.
Right.
I think Kawhi's a more skilled shooter than Jimmy
Yes.
Butler is. But I do also think
Jimmy's more of a grinder than he is.
Yeah. But I would also say that they can attack the offensive game in a very similar way, where they can also just be very grindy in that way. Like they could both shoot and like they could both be very comfortable living in the mid range. You know what I mean? So I would say where they differ, I would say I would say Jimmy's way more of that, like boisterous, louder guy, whereas Kawhi,
1,000%.
yeah, whereas Kawhi's the silent cyborg. I'd say Jimmy's more the head game guy, whereas Kawhi's the impenetrable force. So I would just say that's where they differ. But I mean, I could definitely see the similarities for sure. There's definitely things that mirror each other, I would say.
Hot take, I would rather have Jimmy Butler. But but that's just me.
I mean, I don't know if that's a hot take for a guy that's coming off an ACL injury. I will say,
well, currently, sure. I just mean overall.
Well, overall, no. like when healthy, Kawhi Leonard at one point, there was a debate of who was the best player in the world, LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard. There was a point at his peak where Kawhi Leonard was literally, it was Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Steph Curry. LeBron James. And then it was everybody else. So like Kawhi Leonard, when healthy, is one of the 5 best basketball players in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's one of the only guys we've seen in this league. We can count on one hand the guys that have been the best player on a championship team. Kawhi Leonard's one of them, and he's done it in 2 different teams.
That's true.
So I would just I know the Clippers have been a disappointment. I know they haven't. I mean, I listen. I think the Clippers are very much a team that people are overlooking, and in my opinion, especially with the roster that they put together this past year, like at the trade deadline, a lot of things they did. Clippers could contend next year. They very much could.
They're basically the Warriors for the last couple of seasons, like where the Warriors just had everyone on the IL, and so it was like, well, of course they looked like shit because they had nobody.
Well, they last year they made it to their first Western Conference Finals.
Yes.
This year was really where they just didn't have anybody because Kawhi injured himself in the playoffs. Paul George broke his elbow at one point this year. So yeah, this year was really a regroup year. But the amazing thing about it was a regroup year and they were still in the play-in tournament. There was a point where they were still like a Western Conference playoff team, like a 6 seed. They were above even the play-in at one point. It was just like, really injuries truly towards the end of the season, and then Paul George came back and we saw that team almost get in. And then, Paul George got COVID before the play-in tournament. It was all kind of a weird thing, but I mean, Kawhi coming back next year with everyone they have around him, they'll be fine.
They might win a championship, and the sad part is they don't have any fans to celebrate it. So Sean, moving on to the actual finals.
Hey, Billy Crystal will be really excited, and we'll be
happy. He'll be the only guy absolutely screaming in an empty stadium.
Donald Sterling somewhere in his home, that racist old bastard will just be like, he'll
be like, oh, that's cool.
And he'll take all the credit.
I don't know that he watches basketball. No chance, right? Maybe.
Yeah, not anymore. Probably not.
Prob's not.
I mean, he's probably just, he probably is too racist to watch basketball.
That's kind of what I assumed from the get-go. I thought he just kind of owned the team just to make money, but
yeah, he so if you go back and listen to a lot of it, the long story short of it is he always has been he's always been very 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 jealous of Jerry Buss and the Lakers family. So he wanted to be Jerry Buss back in the day, and that's why I moved the team to LA and tried to make it glamorous and all this stuff.
So that's why no one gives a shit about the Clippers, is they're the fucking shitty knockoff Lakers.
Oh yeah, like there's a whole I would highly recommend ESPN does a whole podcast series on the deep dive of what happened with Donald Sterling and his story and all that stuff, like his rise and fall and everything like that. And it's a very
interesting,
very, very fascinating listen because it goes full in detail, doesn't pull back any punches, and gives the full breakdown.
What podcast is that?
It's actually ESPN 30 for 30. It was Ramona Shelburne did a really interesting
Do they
deep
have like a
dive.
video version or is it podcast only?
It's just a podcast only, but I would
Okay.
still recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll listen to that at work.
Yeah.
Sean, tell me about what you have seen in the finals up to this point and why the Boston Celtics will be your champions.
Yeah, man. So first of all, I saw something today from there, StatMuse is blown up out of proportion,
Mm.
and they had a tweet that even baffled my mind. So the Warriors currently during these finals, offensive rating in the finals so far with Steph on the floor would rank first this season. And then if Steph is not on the floor, would rank the worst offensive rating in the last 50 seasons. So, what does this tell you?
That's not great.
Well, first of all, let's get the obvious out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Steph Curry's playing great. The rest of the guys need to step up. Additionally, Klay Thompson I believe he has 32 points on 36 attempts so far these finals. I think in addition, you look at the Boston Celtics and the Warriors and how they match up. I think one thing that's noticeable is I think the Warriors came out with a lot of energy in game 2. They were super physical. They were really intense. But in game 3, they couldn't match it because Boston came out ready to go. The difference, in my opinion, between these two teams is that Boston can bring that level each and every single night. The Warriors are going to try, but they're just an older team. This Boston Celtics team is just, in my opinion, they're just made for this moment. And as of right now, the Warriors after game 3, they looked exhausted. And they could very much do a lot of things to force game 4 to be competitive because they almost brought it back in the third quarter, but then the fourth quarter happened, and the Celtics they imposed their will on the game, and Jaylen Brown has really been the star, in my opinion, for Boston so far. He's shined to the moment. He's taken the ball and he's been their number one guy on the offensive end. I mean, Jason Tatum, he's been facilitating. He's still been scoring. He's still been aggressive. But this Boston Celtics team is no joke, man. And
they're deep. They're really well built. It's so crazy, and this shows why sports are such a hard thing to predict in a lot of ways and things like that. Is because when we looked at this team, even a year, maybe 2 years ago and stuff like that, there was no question about the fact that it had talent on it, right? And that they had young guys like Jason Tatum who were going to be unbelievable elite stars in the NBA and stuff like that, right? That stuff wasn't in question. However, you had a coach who clearly wasn't getting it done, and they thought, hey, this guy that we don't believe in to coach the team, let's put him in the front office. And everyone went, what the fuck are you doing? And they brought in another coach. And so it was like, okay, I guess we'll see what the hell this is about. And then they started offloading players, and then they started bringing guys in that everyone kind of went, well, we'll see, and then they brought back Al Horford, which felt kind of weird because it was like, okay.
Yeah, which like at the time it was like I mean, and honestly, I think
it was like an odd reunion of what I was calling the shitty Celtics, and we made fun of it.
Right. Well, it was kind of because to me, I thought it was like admitting a mistake of we shouldn't have let this guy go in the first place.
That's what the truth of the matter was. Yes.
Which Al Horford playing, it's been an affirmation that he should have stayed in Boston and that this is where he's meant to be. So, and also I like him a lot. But also, I think the other difference, though, coming back to Boston, I think Al Horford's fully allowed Tatum and Brown to take ownership of the team, and he's really been there to support and to contribute in whatever way he can. And so I think the thing that's impressed me the most is, for one, Ime Udoka being as good of a coach as he's been year one, but also
very impressive.
But also the vision that they saw with this roster, because around the trade deadline, they could have, or around January or like beginning of the year, like middle of the season, they could have given up on this team. But they saw the vision on it the entire time and they didn't give up on it. And now we're in a situation where the Boston Celtics are, when this comes out, they are 2 wins away from being NBA champions.
Yeah.
And, the Warriors, I know people are dogging on Draymond having a rough game 3. To be honest with you, man, I think if Draymond had a great game 3, I don't know if that would have made the difference.
Yeah.
And I just think this was a bad matchup from Golden State from the beginning.
Agreed.
And I don't know if it was just because, this Warriors team, like we just saw Steph Curry and we were just like, oh, well, he's done it before. They'll do it again.
Yeah.
But it's, again, like when you look at these matchups, you have to evaluate the matchup,
Yes.
because that's where it starts. And in this series, that's where it ends.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. When I look at the Celtics, this is it's so crazy. Like this is what I always expected out of this team, and this is what I thought they were, very obviously building towards, and it felt like this was kind of their destiny. Like they had everything in place, and it was just so strange that no matter what they were doing, it seems like they couldn't quite figure it out. And so for them to do it when we sort of felt like they had almost missed the boat is kind of interesting, because obviously they had things like, they brought in Gordon Hayward and they had brought in Kyrie Irving and this, that. And so it's like, it's just kind of interesting that like that was when they were at their worst, actually, is when you kind of expected the most out of them. And then now, coming into this season, we looked at them and went, all right, we'll see. And here they are, certainly in my estimation, to be the champions, which is cool. As a former Celtics fan of some kind, it's cool. I'm excited to see them win. Mostly because I loved Tatum when they drafted him, because I was a fan at the time. And then Al Horford, lovely guy, great dude. Wish that Isaiah Thomas would be able to enjoy it as well, but it is what it is.
Now, obviously, this series isn't over yet. Like,
no,
like there's like
the Warriors could still technically. I mean, like, I'm not counting them out completely.
The Warriors are very much still in this series because they have Steph Curry and they have Steve Kerr and they have Klay Thompson and they have Draymond Green and they have the tutelage that they have. But I think what you're gonna have to see from them, first of all, you're it's like we've talked about before. It's never been the concern of Steph Curry. Like we've seen Steph be phenomenal this entire series, right? Klay Thompson, he was 5 of 13 from beyond the arc. He gave you 25 points. Klay Thompson was fine. He still lost by almost 20.
Right.
Andrew Wiggins, 7 of 16. He was fine. He almost lost by 20. Want to know where the margin? Want to know what the secret is? You don't get a damn thing from your bench because you have your 2 guys that you bring in from the second unit. You have Jordan Poole and Otto Porter. That's 16 points from your second unit. That's not going to cut it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you have Kevon Looney and Draymond Green. Those are your only other 2 guys. They combined for 8 points, with Draymond only getting 2. Like that's just not gonna.
Yeah,
like when you're putting all of the pressure for Steph Curry to be your offense.
Yes.
And you even have other guys helping. That's the thing that's dangerous. It's like we talked about even how like the other night, it's like, man, you're like how Jason Tatum, he had his worst game in the finals, game 1. You're not getting You're not getting a bad game like that again. You almost lost by 20. You have a game like this where you're not going to get a game where Steph, Klay, and Andrew Wiggins all play that well at the same time.
Right.
You almost lost by 20.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
and that's why, obviously I'm not totally counting them out because they're still a very good team. Like there's a reason why they are in the position right now where they're at. But the reason why is just all the things you just said right there is why at this point I've kind of just accepted like, oh yeah, the Celtics are going to win the championship, is because, yeah, I mean, when everything seems to be going pretty damn well for the Warriors and things are not going as well as they normally would be for the Celtics, and yet the Celtics are still almost winning by 20. To me, it's just like, listen, man, at that point, what are you going to do?
Right. So here's what I'll say.
Yeah.
I've been trying to warn people about this Celtics team for months. Like I've literally been like, like for a few months now, I've been like, I feel like this could be a direction we're heading. And as the playoffs have gone on, I'm like, I don't know, man, this Boston Celtics team. And now here we are.
Indeed. Yeah, my prediction of the Grizzlies obviously has died a long time ago. You know, a very quick, at least it was a somewhat quick and painless death.
Remember when we were betting on whether the Lakers or the Nets would win the title, and they
Yeah, I
both have
remember that.
literally been gone since April? Like that
Yeah,
bet's been dead for 2 months now. Like,
it's fucked up. I mean, it really is unbelievable.
yeah.
Honestly, the thing is like I don't think the funny reality of it was is that I didn't believe in the Lakers. I really didn't. The
Mhm.
thing of it was more, it was honestly more of a bet of you believing in the Nets and me not believing in the Nets. It was kind of more that was the bet in a lot of ways, and I used the Lakers as sort of the measuring stick. But yeah, it is pretty wild that ended up the way that it did. And the Lakers now are trying to pretend that they're going to be relevant next year, which is fucking hilarious. But
Yeah, I just don't know how running it back. I just don't see what's
that
gonna
team is
change.
completely and utterly fucked.
Like it sounds like Darvin Ham has the right mentality of what he wants and what he's expecting, but again,
Sean, they're fucked. But
yeah, I just I
you know who else
love
is
it.
fucked? His name is Deshaun Watson. Sean, would you like to pull up some of the relevant information while I talk us through it a little bit? But this guy, he needs help. Not because I feel sorry for him,
He
not
needs a jail
because
cell.
well, that for sure, but I just mean like this is a guy who has a problem and he needs to work through that issue.
So,
Like this guy has an unbelievable ego problem. He feels invincible. And why shouldn't he? Because he has everybody around him helping him, including the organization that he used to play for, which we'll get into. But I mean, you know, this guy has fallen for all of the webs of fame that one could possibly fall into and just thinking, he can kind of do no wrong and he deserves all of this and blah, 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 and this and that. And he needs to, you know,
he's a
he,
predator.
yes, this guy needs to reevaluate his life,
Yeah.
his morality, and
So,
just to,
yeah, so let's get into it. So
sure.
first, so like just to preface, this is via reporting from the New York Times
Hmm.
by Jenny Verentes, who's been on top of this ever since the beginning of the Deshaun Watson allegations. And
Yes. And it's
essentially,
important to say that they are allegations, technically speaking.
yep, they are allegations, in the United States legal system, innocent until proven guilty. However, here's what we have based on these reportings, findings, as well as what's available to us through evidence and everything like that.
Yes.
We know, according to this report, that over a 17-month period, Deshaun Watson had 66 different massage therapists, 66 different women over a 17-month period. And
Yes.
of those 66 women, 24 of them are part of the suit, including 2 new suits within the last week. 2 women who filed criminal complaints against Watson but didn't sue him. At least 15 therapists who issued support or statements of support at the request of his lawyers. At
Mhm.
least 4 therapists from Genuine Touch, the massage therapy group contracted with the Texans. So at least 4 women that the Texans themselves contracted.
Okay.
5 women identified by plaintiffs' lawyers during the investigation for their civil suits, and at least 15 other women whose appointments with Watson were confirmed through interviews and records reviewed by the Times. So we only have 24 women who actually are part of the suit. There's 2
Yes.
that aren't a part of the suit. And then other than that, there's other women we know of, and we have no clue who all he could have harmed or what he could have done, because there's a lot of, and just for the sake of, it's a really long article. There's a lot
Mhm.
of information in there that I don't want to miss. There's a lot of specific stories and women who tell or specifically speak on their experiences. But but listen, there's just things there's just things that are just damning. So because here's this. So for example, Deshaun Watson was questions about using a massage therapist who was a flight attendant. She wasn't even a therapist yet. She wasn't even licensed. She was just taking classes.
Yikes.
And let me read you the question and answer.
Sure.
Can you explain why you reached out to her on Instagram rather than just using a therapist you had used before? Because I needed a massage therapy. Okay, you could have just used somebody you used before, right? Yeah, I could have. You could. Yeah, you didn't. But you didn't, did you? I did not. You could have used the Texans, right? Definitely possible. But you didn't, did you? I did not. And then they asked, did you even ask what her experience level was? No, sir. That wasn't a priority. Right. You didn't care, did you? That wasn't a priority. I just wanted a massage. You didn't care what her skill level was, correct? That wasn't a priority. You didn't care she was properly trained? That wasn't my priority, sir. So, and he claimed, and a lot of times he would claim that he was just trying to support black businesses, or he was trying to support women. And so like
that's so fucked up.
And then the other thing that's even disturbing is that he partnered with a massage therapist, like a guy who owned this guy who owned a massage therapist group, and like he would talk to his therapist about ways to get more money out of their clients, and apparently would like work with him on finding ways to find places to meet. So the thing is systematically, it just shows, for one, how much power a quarterback can have and how much power these men have over women and how disgusting that is, but also like how far people are willing to go to cover that up and keep that going for the sake of someone who was seen as their football messiah for all intents and purposes. I mean, he was a god in Houston as far as like what he meant to them.
He still is. I mean, well, in the NFL, I mean, the Browns were willing to give him the biggest guaranteed deal in NFL history. That is insane.
Yeah, despite having over 20 plus women accuse you of SA out there. It's just there's just things that just are manipulative, and here's the problem. The fact that, we have to focus on this guy and we have to have conversations on, oh, well, what should his NFL suspension be? Or how should the Browns handle this upcoming season? Who should they bring in at quarterback?
Who gives a fuck? He should never play again.
Who cares? First of all, the Browns deserve whatever's coming to them. For making this investment and fully guaranteeing him $230 million when they clearly didn't have enough information, because this report is new information to everybody. Deshaun Watson claimed he only had seen 40 therapists.
What's the fucking difference? If you're the Cleveland Browns, first of all, when they did that, that was the scummiest shit I've ever seen. Like, the fact that you would reward someone for that kind of behavior is fucking ridiculous. The Cleveland Browns should be ashamed of themselves, and I hope that they have to pay every penny of that shit, and I hope that it should go to him, but instead it goes to something else, maybe the victims or something like that. Like, I would love if the Cleveland Browns end up having to pay that entire sum of money and he doesn't get any of it and it goes to the victims and things like that. Because it's just unfucking believable. Like, completely and totally inexcusable. They had enough information to know that this guy was obviously up to no good, and completely fucking ridiculous. Completely ridiculous.
And what this shows too, first of all, it shows that whatever case the Watson camp has, first of all, they don't have a great one. I mean,
they almost have none. Can you bring up? I was actually going to see if you would pull up the quotes from I think it's his lawyer or something like that. He was on some podcast or some bullshit or radio show, and he was talking about how, like, oh, well, technically a happy ending at the end of a massage isn't illegal. And now they're trying to pretend that, like, oh, well, that's not technically illegal as long as it's consenting. I'm like, right, I guess, except for the fact that you're being sued by like
Yep.
a quarter of the people, so it was clearly
Yep.
not fucking
The
consensual.
argument the argument that is case that is counsel is making is
Mm,
that any contact that they have had, that he has had with the massage parlor, he insisted was initiated by the massage parlor. But if you read literally everything, first of all, these, I mean, by law, these are not supposed to turn this way. Second of all, like the other thing, a lot of these people don't even know each other that are putting in the, like, it's just there's just a lot of this is just so incriminating.
and the
It's just
details are so fucked of like him like just putting his legs up like really awkwardly and being
yep,
like,
yep, and
"Yeah, get in there." And it's like,
we're
Jesus Christ.
we're not gonna,
We're not gonna
yeah,
go into there, but
yeah.
I'm like, my guy, listen.
There's just too
You
much in there.
you
Like,
did it.
yeah,
Like, I don't know what to tell you. And yeah, the Cleveland Browns, they deserve everything that's coming to them because it's completely fucked up that they did that. The Texans are even worse because they tried to cover the shit up by giving him NDAs and helping him out with this and even putting their own staff in danger and things like that. Fucking unbelievable. And yeah, I mean, this is the unfortunate reality of the NFL of like, I love the NFL and I love the product and this and that, whatever. And so do unbelievable millions of people to the point where, a regular NFL game gets 3 times the views or at least double the views of the NBA final. Like it just is
mhm.
so insane. And because of that level of fame, these guys feel invincible. And it's just like, how do you combat that? And the thing is, hold them fucking accountable. I mean, and hopefully that's how this all ends up. And it seems like it will, because I mean, how the fuck could you ever let this guy wear another NFL jersey ever again? And honestly, I understand the whole innocent until proven guilty, blah, 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 whatever. If Roger
Right.
Goodell had any bit of a soul or gave a single fuck, he would just put him on the exempt list and be like, listen, we can't technically fire him legally, but like you're not playing in our league until you somehow mystically prove you didn't do this shit because you clearly did this shit. Like you're
Right,
gone.
well, and you know what's gonna happen is he's gonna get, like, an 8-game suspension or something down the middle of the road where he'll miss, like, a third of the season to,
Yep.
like, a half of the season, and then after that, he'll come back and however he plays, that's how he's gonna be judged from there on out, and that's the disgusting thing about the football landscape. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, and I would imagine that, I mean, I would imagine that the reports are not done. I would imagine that the
I would imagine.
information, I would imagine that there's gonna be more we're going to find out. But I mean, the way things are going right now, I mean, the more information comes out, the worse it looks for Deshaun Watson. And
Yes.
I just it's just impossible for me to move, I know that, like, I know he very much wants to just move on to football. The Browns very much want to focus and move on to football. We as a society by no means should move on and just say, all right, well, let's talk about Deshaun Watson as a quarterback because, you know, that just doesn't feel, that just
That's not
doesn't
how this
feel,
works.
yeah, this
Yeah.
is not how this is gonna work.
No, it's just, listen, man, it's one thing if it's a like social justice topic or something like that. And it's like, listen, football is my escapism. I don't want to hear about this stuff, whatever. I get that stuff sometimes because I'm in the same boat. Even if I care about a cause, sometimes you're just kind of a little bit over it. But like, for the love of God, like this is, heinous actions and abusive allegations against a player. I mean, it'd be like expecting OJ to play after.
Mhm.
Like, what the fuck are we talking about? And obviously, that's even worse because he fucking, slaughtered 2 people. But like, Jesus Christ, like, you can't just glaze over this. Like, he should literally never play again. The thing of it is because what he did is gross and manipulative and blah 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 and all that. Because it is all of that, I get that. He didn't, to our knowledge so far, do anything, you know, even more heinous. You know what I'm saying? I think that there's an opportunity for him as a person, not as a player. I think as a player, he should be done. As a person, he just needs to get help and he needs to get a group around him, better people in his life, better perspective. You know, I believe that any person can turn around their life and can change their behaviors and things like that, whatever. And he's going to need to do that. He's going to need to face the consequences, whether they be financial, whether they be legal, you know, whatever it is. But you know, face those consequences, and then from that point on, you know,
But
I
here's the problem, Robert. What's the likelihood of a guy like Deshaun Watson facing those consequences? Because
that's
that's the
the
problem.
unfortunate part.
That's very much the problem with our system,
Yes.
I think that's kind of the grander conversation and the entire
Yes.
point of what we need to look at with the NFL right now. Because it's like if you just bring this guy in and he goes on a if he has like a 6-7 game suspension, let's say Deshaun Watson comes back after being suspended, his first game back, he throws 4 touchdowns. He's going to be blasted all over the social media page. Deshaun Watson's back to dominating on NFL Sundays. And it's like, and it's the only
He'll be on
league.
every fantasy team.
Yep. And it's the only league that seems to just not have any care whatsoever about the moral implications of what having him in the league means and what having him around the game of football says.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so it's just one of those things where there's just an overwhelming amount of stories of things that have been covered up for the sake of winning football games. And
Yes.
it just seems like we're just in this cycle where we just keep hearing more and more. So, you know,
It's the
one of those
problem with
things.
everything in this country in a lot of ways, which is just really sad of just like the continuous cycle of bad things happen, and then you ask for change, and then you forget, and then the next bad thing happens, and you can apply it to almost every single aspect of anything these days, it feels like. And it is really, really disheartening, and it can be really, really hard not to just become completely black-pilled and just feel like it's hard to care in some ways. But yeah, it's just, man, with every case like this, it's just like the only way we can break that cycle is to finally make any steps towards accountability and to make a difference this time. You know, like, you
Mhm.
know what? We might have fucked up in every previous case. We might have not done the right thing every other time. But if we do it right this time, then maybe we can do it again the second time and the third time and continue from there. And we can finally have some progress. And
Right.
that's what I really, really hope happens with this. And
Right.
again, I just, as a human being, I do I don't know why, I guess, but I do feel some level of need to emphasize of like, I believe that he very much can rehabilitate himself to be a better
I
person.
just don't think it's the time for that conversation. I do believe like I believe he can. I believe
Yes.
in that thing as well. But it's like I just think there has to be I think before we talk about redemption, there has to be some form of justice served first. And like
Yes.
and that's the thing is like, you know, because first of all, it's
And he
not
should
even
never play
just
football again.
it goes beyond Deshaun Watson is my point. It goes because first of all, there's going to be justice that's going to be served to him too.
Yes.
But the Houston Texans are not looking good after these reports. In fact, they
Yeah, that
helped
was the other thing.
facilitate these meetings. They literally gave him a hotel where a lot of these incidents happened,
Yeah, and
and
the
they had it
non-disclosures.
under the name of a training staff member at the hotel, not even under Deshaun Watson's name. So this team has full ownership of a lot of the problems that happen because they helped put it into place. They
Yeah,
put
no,
people in
100%.
danger. And so like the thing is like, you know, before we even get to the like like him like redeeming or like anything like that. First of all, the Houston Texans, who, you know, a lot of people were kind of saying, "Oh, well, you have to feel bad for them with everything that's happening with Deshaun Watson. Now they're just losing their quarterback." No,
Not anymore.
there is a negative amount of remorse going towards that organization. There is
Or the
nothing.
Browns at this point either, because they
Well,
definitely, come on,
of
guys.
course, well, the Browns from day one, ever since they traded for Deshaun Watson,
Ridiculous.
there was no justification. There was no they mortgaged the future of their franchise, and firmly they said it is more important to have a good quarterback than it is to have a good person play quarterback.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where obviously they're in a business of winning games and they want to get the best quarterback possible, but at the same time, you have to have a quarterback that's not a criminal and not a giant.
Well, it's just such a fucked up precedent to set. And yeah, no, you're totally right from the standpoint of like the league in and of itself needs to change, because we can't keep doing this. We can't keep having guys like Ben Roethlisberger be accused. We can't keep having guys like fucking Ray Rice on video sucker punching his wife in an L. Like, we can't keep having these incidents
and
then be like, oh, well, we'll just give him a slap on the wrist, but then Colin Kaepernick fucking knees on the sideline and then he never plays again. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
And if there's anyone that can set the precedent, it's the highest league in the NFL, or it's the highest league in football. It's the NFL, because we see this happen in the NCAA. We see this kind of stuff happen in high school. So you know what I mean? Like, this is the kind of stuff where we see corruption at every single level of football.
It's a trickle down.
But when it's so blatant, when it's at the highest level, when it's happening right in front of our faces, and it's not even for a transparent reason. There's no fluff pieces that are being written. There's no pretending what this is or isn't. Like, we all know that Deshaun Watson would not have a job if he could not produce to the level that he can on a football field. If Deshaun Watson was not considered before all of this one of the top 5 signal callers in the world, he wouldn't even have a job.
Correct.
So it's one of those things where we have a league where we have players who stand up for what they believe in Colin Kaepernick, and you get disbarred from the league, and you're called, you're called an embarrassment, a disgrace. You're literally shunned from all 32 teams. But if you commit SA, there's literally a bidding war for you.
Yes. Yeah, man, it's so unfortunate, because honestly, in a lot of ways, it's reflective of the society that we kind of live in, where that just seems to be the way that, unfortunately, America rolls in a lot of ways, where, and we've seen this reckoning happening over the last, 5 years, really, truly, finally, with like the Me Too movement really, blowing up and things like that. And so we're seeing accountability every day, luckily, finally. A lot of this stuff systematically is changing to where these CEOs or these politicians and things like that, whatever, are being called out. But it's just, every day you see more cases like this where it's like, damn, we are still so far.
It's not even the only one in the NFL. Like, that's the other thing. Like, we have the situation with the Washington football team and the Commanders and everything that they have going on. We have the situation with the NFL lawsuit on discrimination. It's really not like there is a litany of issues that,
and in a lot of ways, it ties in with that guy who, remind me if you know the name of the guy who's being sued by Simone Biles and all of those people.
Yeah, Larry Nassar.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like that's obviously not football per se, but like it's I mean, it's that kind of thing though.
Well, it's
people in these.
Yeah, it's a system where people, for the sake of winning, for the sake of competition, for the sake of money, for the sake of sponsorships, everything, they're willing to hold it all together. Yep.
And actually today I saw something about the, and this is not sports related, but the same thing with Microsoft. There was an executive who's been around for a long time that everyone considered untouchable. He was the one who created or had the idea for the Xbox Connect and all this shit, whatever. He was like one of the golden boys of Microsoft. He stepped down because, of course, they protect their buddies enough to let them step down, which is just so nice. And so this guy gets to step down, as we find out now that he's gone, that, oh, well, he had been doing a bunch of fucked up shit. And he, there was a lot of allegations against him. Apparently at work, he was watching VR porn and shit like that in his office. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, these are the guys that are being protected every single day at the top levels in every single aspect of business. And, if as long as they're producing results and as long as they're the golden boy of whatever company or whatever sport or whatever it is, you just turn a blind eye. And then once the public finds out, you go, oops, and then you let him resign. And then it's like, oh, maybe people will forget once it's out of the headlines. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And unacceptable.
Yeah. 100%. And the sad thing is that we have these conversations, and every single year, or almost constantly, it seems like we're calling for the NFL to make changes. And it's like, like the week of the Super Bowl, there were all these allegations and all these things coming out about it. But at the end of the day, when Sunday comes around, football kicks off, it just seems like all that stuff goes to the wayside. So I just, it's just a sincere hope that something happens at some point, man, because I love the game of football too much to see it be led by such a morally decrepit, corrupt, garbage organization like the National Football League.
Yeah, man. Well said. It's really, honestly, man, it really is like the crack cocaine of America in a way, because it's so addicting, and it's so like, football is this great thing that you want to watch and you want to love, and you're so passionate, right? And then it's just so fucking harmful in so many ways, whether it be the players' health that's continuing to hopefully get better just from the impacts and the CTE and all that, to the scandals and the cover-ups and this and that and the abuse. And it's like, Jesus Christ, like, it's so unfortunate.
It's supposed to be pitched as this innocent distraction.
Yes.
When in actuality, it's this world of corruption and monopoly, and it's everything. I think the thing about football is that it is so intrinsically American.
It reflects our country perfectly.
It does, because it shows the highest of highs and what people can achieve, but it also just shows the worst of humanity and like what we're willing to compromise for those things. So,
and having, empty messages constantly that I can't stand, having these lame ass things in the end zone, like end racism and shit like that on the back of the helmets and whatever.
Because Black Lives Matter's too politically charged. It's because it's not, they have to say the least controversial thing.
So fucking, well, the thing of it is that it's like, oh, well, let's put this in the end zone so that, like, we can appease people to try to continue to make money, but we really don't actually give a fuck. And also, there's a reason why we still have blackballed Colin Kaepernick, and it's just
and racism, as we're being sued by Brian Flores because we have perhaps less black head coaches than we did when we literally introduced the Rooney Rule.
Whoops. Yeah, no, it's completely, it's really, honestly, such a perfect mirror of the country in so many ways. Because, yeah, I mean, that just represents every corporation. It's the same reason why people make fun of every corporation during the month of June, because they all change their logos to be gay pride flags. And it's like, you don't give a shit about pride. You're just doing that to try to continue to, like, keep yourself,
it's even like people saw the tweet from Chipotle from 2015.
Oh, Jesus.
Where it's just like they said something super offensive, but it was just like,
was it an old one? Because I thought that was from this year where it says homo estas.
Yeah, I think it was from 2015.
That is one of the worst. I was like, that's unbelievable that they thought that people would be like, yeah, that's awesome, they're with us. It's like, no, you're not. That's so bad. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was from June of 2015.
Jesus, that one is brutal. And what's even worse is that the U.S. Marines put out one this year where they had a helmet and then they had rainbow bullets. And I'm like, bro, not like 3 days ago there was a fucking mass shooting and we should really do something about gun control, and you're gonna put fucking rainbow bullets? Like, are you fucking stupid? Like, are you serious? Like, oh my God. It's like, read the room. But there's just too many things, man. It's just, oh my gosh. Try to end it on a somewhat positive note, I am wearing a Rangers jersey, as you can see here, because the team is currently tied 2-2 with the Tampa Bay Lightning's the defending two-time champion Tampa Bay Lightning. And, it's been kind of an interesting series. The Rangers looked really, really good at first, and it looked like they very well could make it to the Stanley Cup and really, really surprise everybody. And then all of a sudden, the old Lightning showed up the last couple of games and really made the Rangers look pretty bad. So it'll be interesting to see either way how it goes. The Avalanche absolutely obliterated the Oilers in a lot of ways, and so they are just waiting for an opponent at this point. I think that the Avalanche is going to win the Stanley Cup no matter what.
Right now, I think it's just a competition for who gets to lose to the Avalanche.
That's exactly what I think it is. I think if it's the Rangers who make it to the Stanley Cup, they will absolutely get obliterated by the Avalanche. I think if the Lightning make it, that could be an
6.
amazing, yeah, for sure. But I think that could be an amazing series because I really think that the Lightning, by all accounts, very well could win a third straight Stanley Cup, which would be amazing and impressive. I'm rooting on some level for the Rangers, I guess. I also really like the Avs. So in a lot of ways, I'm just here to have fun and watch hockey. But no, I think that the Avs are just way too good. I think that they could definitely beat the Lightning, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Lightning were able to make them choke in a lot of ways. But yeah, if it's the Rangers, I think the Rangers, as much as I like them, and I think they will be Stanley Cup champions multiple times, maybe even in the near future, I just think that the Avalanche are way too fucking good.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I definitely believe that they're gonna do that hockey.
I was just waiting for it. I was like, please tell
um,
me he's gonna just say something stupid.
And whether New York does the hockey or Tampa Bay does the hockey, they're gonna have to show up, and it's
Colorado does that hockey.
Listen, it's gonna be ultimately a game of endurance. Who, at the end of the day, as the season grinds down, who can truly do that hockey?
Yes.
That's what it's gonna come down to.
That's true. You're spitting facts there. In fact, they call it the. Yeah, in fact,
isn't it fitting that I'm the guy that gets to hang out with Darren McCarty and be friends with D-Mac?
Yeah, fuck you.
I know.
Actually, they're renaming the Stanley Cup to the Hockey Cup. So
Oh yeah, United Hockey Cup.
That's right. It's just the Hockey Cup. Yeah, it's actually Anyways, you fucking folks, it's been fun. We will see you again next week, where we will have crowned an NBA champion, which is exciting. Cool stuff.
Yeah. Hopefully by that point we will. I mean, I imagine we're gonna have some pretty competitive basketball this weekend. I mean, we got. I mean, as when this comes out tonight is game 4.
Okay.
And then and then from there, we potentially could have an NBA champion here by at the very latest 10 days from or 9 days from as of the time this episode comes out today.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, when does game 7 happen if it was to go that far?
June 19th.
June 19th. Okay, all right.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So no matter what, the season will end by then. So we are in the dog days of the NBA season. It only makes me wanna cry and jump off a ledge, but that's fine.
Hey, it's all right. You got Summer League coming up soon.
Boy, do I. It's true. The Summer League. It's the most wonderful time.
It's a thing.
God,
it is certainly a thing.
It does happen.
I would tell you to watch baseball to keep yourself sane, but then I, of course, remember that the Detroit Tigers are complete dog shit. So if you're going to watch baseball,
you need to go yourself. But anyway,
you should maybe watch a team other than them to stay sane.
I think I will. Yeah, but that's fair. Anyway.
All right, folks. We love you and stuff like that. Ow!